today is one of our days of reflection. So for those of you who are newer, we have a day of reflection either every month, sometimes bi-monthly. It happens around the full moon. And basically the day of reflection is when we do the Fusatsu ceremony, which we did this morning, which I totally butchered as the chant leader this morning, for those of you who were here. I think my jet lag, I just flew in yesterday, I think my jet lag hit this morning. I was singing something strange, so I apologize for that. Thank you for bearing with me. That was weird. So yeah, we do the Fusatsu ceremony, which is an ancient ceremony going back to the time of the Buddha. They would do it around the full moon. We renew our vows to practice the precepts. We also invoke the names of the Buddhas and Bodhisattva archetypes and vow to embody them in our lives. And so this day of reflection is also a day of atonement. And the way we do it in the White Plum lineage is we also take this day to look at one of the precepts in particular. So in Zen, Mahayana Buddhism, we kind of pare down the precepts to just 10. I think in other sects and other lineages there are like many precepts, but we really focus on the 10 grave Bodhisattva precepts. And so this month is non-lying. So looking at lying. And of course, this precept practice is not about not doing something or doing something. Very different from the 10 Commandments in that way. Sometimes we use language like breaking, I broke a precept, I lied, I broke the precept. But I personally kind of want to change that approach. It's not really about keeping and breaking these things. It's not ethical guidelines to do or not do. It really is an ethical practice. So this precept of lying isn't so much about not lying as much as it is deepening, a continual deepening of our relationship with our speech. Right? When is lying bad? When is lying good? What does it feel like to lie? How does lying affect my relationships? How does lying affect my health? How does lying affect my community? So it's really not about good and bad, doing well and keeping them, or doing badly and breaking them. It really is just about cultivating a personal relationship with lying, with killing, with stealing, with gossiping, with elevating myself, with anger, with mind of poverty, with disparaging my life, all these different precepts that we practice. So I think that's really important to see that this ethical practice of the precepts really is just so fluid and so whole. And so today, I'm going to let other people do a lot of the talking. We're going to look at our traditional interpretations of the precepts from Bodhidharma, from Dogen Zenji, and from the Zen peacemakers. And then I also wanted to play this video that was sent to me by Jitsujo, who some of you may know. She's a priest and a teacher at ZCLA, and she sent this great video with a little snippet that I thought would be relevant today. And then hopefully there's time to also dip into this Home is Here book that I'm trying to really focus on in the next couple months. So let's just kind of get to it. So we'll take a look at the typical interpretations of the precepts. Let's see, where was it? thought I had this all pulled up. I apologize. I'll just keep blaming jet lag. Okay. Not telling lies. Okay, so the first one is from Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma is considered the first Chinese ancestor of Zen, even though he was Indian. He's credited for bringing our lineage from India to China. I don't know, what, 3rd century? Does anyone know when Bodhidharma was alive?
That sounds reasonable.
One of the single-digit AD centuries. His expression of this non-lying precept says, self-nature is subtle and mysterious. Yeah, Aigo knows it. Each precept, Bodhidharma starts each precept with this sentence. Self-nature, our true self, is subtle and mysterious. Doesn't that kind of feel like a relief, just hearing that? I spend so much time like convinced I'm this kind of person, or that kind of person. Have these ideals. People see me this way. I always do this. I never do that. But what if my true nature is actually quite mysterious? Now I don't have to feel that pressure to be that way that I think I am. And of course, this self-nature is also very much universe nature. Universe is subtle and mysterious. And he goes on, in the realm of the inexplicable Dharma, not preaching a single word is called the precept of non-lying. So in the realm of the inexplicable Dharma, nothing can be explained. Nothing can be grasped. The minute we have certainty about something, anything, we transgress this subtle and mysterious nature of the universe. To put it in Western terms, there's a philosopher I always used to like called, his name was David Hume. And his whole thing was that you can't know anything. And so he would talk about, the only reason we know that the sun is going to rise tomorrow is simply because we've seen it happen over and over. But just because we see it over and over doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen tomorrow. Every time I've let go of something in my life, it has fallen to the ground. But that doesn't mean that I know for certain that if I let go of something, it wouldn't just float up. I can guess. I can have a very educated guess. But I don't know, I always really liked David Hume's expression of like, we really can't know. And of course, that's very alive in the Zen expression as well. So this inexplicable Dharma, nothing to know. And from that perspective, literally everything we say is a lie. Right? Everything we say is absolutely true, absolutely real and alive, and totally a lie. Because we just can't know. So he says, from that space of not knowing, seeing everything as mysterious and inexplicable, not preaching a single word is called the precept of non-lying. So I really like that word preaching. It's, one translation. But yeah, can we live our lives not preaching a single word? Especially now as we're so invested, rightfully so invested in social and political work. Can I go to a protest? Can I hold a protest and not preach anything. It reminds me of a quote from Saint Francis de Assisi, is that right? I love this quote. He said, "Preach the gospel with every opportunity you have, and when all else fails, open your mouth." So, can we manifest the Dharma, manifest enlightenment, manifest God when we brush our teeth, when we pick up a piece of trash, without preaching a single word, saying things, they just, and when all else fails, yeah, sometimes we have to. We have to try to explain, we have to try to say something, but it's all lies. So yeah, really seeing that everything we say is free of judgment, truth, lie. That is the precept of non-lying. Then let's go to Dogen. Dogen's expression of this precept is, "The Dharma wheel unceasingly turns, and there is neither excess nor lack." So this is the realm of the inexplicable Dharma that Bodhidharma was talking about. Everything is constantly changing. And for us to deem it too much or too little is really just our human mental, feeble attempts at trying to categorize things, grasp things, understand things. And at the same time, that's a lie. Because there's poverty, and that is lack. And there are billionaires, and that is excess. So yeah, when everything is inexplicable, and everything is a lie, then even that is a lie. So yeah, the Dharma wheel unceasingly turns, and there is neither excess nor lack. Sweet dews permeate. Just invite that. Sweet dews. Just close your eyes and picture a sweet dew. You know that smell. Even here in National City, we get it. It's fresh. It's impermanent. And it's sweet. Invite that energy. Gain. He says, gain the essence and gain the truth. That's interesting. So yeah, his expression of not lying, the Dharma wheel unceasingly turns, and there is neither excess nor lack. Sweet dews permeate. Gain the essence and gain the truth. Gain the essence. Of course, gain is an interesting word here, right? Nothing to gain, nothing to lose. But yeah, become one with your true essence. Be the essence of the universe. And just that is the truth. So when someone is lying to your face, lying to the public, really be with that lie. And it is the truth. There's something to when you know someone is lying, let them lie. Let them lie. We want to fight against it so bad, right? And we want Jordan Klepper and, PolitiFact to call people out, but there is something to just letting the lie be and trusting that that is the truth, that it is a lie. And things will work themselves out. To an extent. To an extent. Forget I said that. So then there is the Zen peacemaker expression, which is what we chant during the Kusatsu ceremony. I will speak the truth and deceive no one. This is the practice of non-lying. I will speak from the heart. I will see and act in accordance with what is. So this is more of an expression of the kind of like, don't do it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna deceive people, I'll tell the truth all the time. And this is my Aunt Laurel, who may be listening now. She reminded me, I told her I was going to be talking about lying, and she reminded me of the other philosopher, Immanuel Kant, who apparently had this like very absolute view on lying and said you should always tell the truth. And even if you're a German family in the Holocaust and you're harboring Jews fleeing, when they come to your house and ask you if you're harboring anyone, you have to say yes, because you have this unshakable duty to tell the truth all the time. That's not how we see it in Buddhist ethics practice. But it does bring up, I'll just really quickly just kind of go through a little study here. So in Zen, we study the precepts from 3 perspectives. I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before. The first perspective is the literal perspective, where literally we try not to lie. We try to speak the truth and deceive no one. Speak from the heart, act in accordance with what is. So there's that practice. I'm just going to invite telling the truth all the time, like Kant. Then the second perspective is relational. So given time, space, condition, and degree, sometimes it's good to lie. You don't tell the Nazis you have Jews in your basement. You tell your aging grandmother that her meatloaf still tastes great. You tell the 5-year-old that their drawing is the best drawing you've ever seen, right? There's so many ways that lying can be beautiful. So that's the relational aspect, and we'll watch something about that soon. And then the third one kind of falls into this Bodhidharma realm, which is the intrinsic perspective, where intrinsically, our true essence is subtle and mysterious. And so this notion of lying, this notion of truth, this notion of killing and life and death itself are actually pretty delusional. And to really come face to face with our intrinsic nature is to see that there's no such thing as killing. There's no such thing as words. They're all empty, totally empty of essence, constantly changing. Inexplicable dharma. No word to preach at all. Anyway, as I'm sitting here saying words. So let's get to some other cool stuff. Okay, I'm here. We just switched the sound here. We're just going to go straight to our book, Home is Here by Lian Shutt. We're not going to be able to get through everything I wanted to, unfortunately. So we'll just kind of let her speak a little bit, and hopefully it will help us look at our relationship to lying and speech. So this book is called Home is Here, Practicing Anti-Racism and the Engaged Eightfold Path. So she has come up with this Engaged Four Noble Truths and Engaged Eightfold Path, which takes these ancient Buddhist teachings and puts them in the context of how to heal our racial wounds and how to create communities of equity and harmony and healing. So later in the book, she talks about right speech, or what she calls skillful speech, which is, of course, one of the Eightfold Path. and she talks a little bit about lying. First thing I wanted to play is just a really short quote that doesn't necessarily have to do with lying in particular, but I just wanted us to hear her say it and just simply reflect.
But my glumness affected my ability to do my job well.
Here's
In the system of racism, white people's point of view is centered. BIPOC voices and points of view are considered less than, from unimportant at the minimum to irrelevant. Also, to me, there was an intersectionality of oppressions.
Okay, I just wanted to offer that in a system of racism, a country built on white supremacy, white voices are centered and considered important. BIPOC voices are seen as less important. I just wanted that to be out, and I want us all to just allow that to sink in. Notice where you resist that. Notice where you say, I don't do that. Notice where you feel relief that that is being said. And just for those of us who may have resistance to that, um, just think about what it would mean to live your life, and everywhere you go, by default, at least it feels like your voice is not considered as important.
Skillful speech begins the part of the Eightfold Path grouping classically known as ethical conduct, followed by skillful enactment and skillful living, or right action and right livelihood classically. Since this section is about how we can relate to ourselves, with each other, and the world, I prefer the term compassionate connection rather than ethical conduct. I'm calling it compassionate connection to emphasize the relational quality of this section of the Eightfold Path as it directs us to manifest the wisdom grouping of the path, namely skillful view and skillful motivation. Within this grouping, skillful speech is the first factor that asks us to put into action skillful motivation's framing of how the drive or motivation of our thinking can be used. Will our speech be driven by oppressive power with its embedded division and disconnection, or toward wholeness and connection?
Okay. Everyone online hearing that okay? Nice. So yeah, this is just, I really want to start getting into kind of the flow and structure of this book. Um, so talking about skillful speech as part of this classically known as like ethical conduct portion of the Eightfold Path. And I love that she is instead calling it compassionate connection. It's less about like me being ethical and more about my speech, my livelihood, and my action creating connection with people, real, respectful, whole connection. And of course, lying plays a role in that. And so maybe as we go forward, think about a time where telling a difficult truth created a real compassionate connection. And then think about when maybe lying created a real compassionate connection. Is that wrong? Is that right? Let's see. This is nice. I'll share this too.
speaking skillfully to connect. I have come up with an acronym to help us remember it more easily. TUGS. I have also put a positive spin on it. T is for truthful. Truthfulness is layered and in context. U is for uplifting. Instead of speech that divides, the motivation is to bring forth the positive, especially to overcome internalized self-hatred. G is for gentle, instead of harsh and abusive. S is for significant, instead of idle chatter. When we go to speak, these qualities can be like a tug at our sleeves to remind us to ask ourselves, am I speaking in a way that is truthful, uplifting, gentle, and has significance?
Isn't that nice? We love a good acronym, right? Tugs, speaking the truth, being uplifting, which when she goes into it, she talks about it in a kind of self-talk kind of way, which I think is really nice. Can I speak to myself in an uplifting way? Gentle and significant. Um, so that's going to be up to each and every one of us to take with us as we go forward. But I'll just offer, and she doesn't necessarily say this, but I'll just kind of offer the three perspectives on these as well, right? So it's not that everything we say should always be truthful, right? Like we saw, sometimes deception is good. Uplifting is great, but like also sometimes harsh is good too. Gentle is wonderful. But some tough love has been very helpful for me throughout my life. And significant, yeah, stay away from idle chatter. And really, only when all else fails, open your mouth, like St. Francis de Assisi said. But also, I mean, I'm sure we all are very familiar with like just shooting the shit with somebody and talking about a cartoon and talking about shoes and how, like, what a deep, beautiful, harmonious connection we can have with somebody in doing that. So again, all of these maps, these precepts, these acronyms, these teachings, they're just invitations to create a relationship, not to do them. So let's get to work. Thank you all for listening.